So good day, Dr. Ernest Messina. It's such a privilege for me to have you on the Mindful Practice podcast show. And welcome. Thank you for taking the time.
It's my pleasure, Bronwyn.
Yes, we recently met at a networking event and found ourselves sitting at the same table. And I asked you, are you retired? What is it that you do? And you gave me this roundabout answer. And I realized that you have a very interesting life and invited you to the podcast to share this amazing story of your life. So thank you for being here.
You're welcome.
So if we can go back, Doctor, and discuss where your formative years started and what that childhood journey looked like for you. Let's start there.
Yeah, it's a long one, but as you indicated or said earlier, a very interesting one. I find it at times fascinating, intriguing. Yeah, and to start right at the start. I was born on a farm, Klein Simonsvlei, on the Klapmuts Road for people who have an idea or not an idea. It's not far from Franschhoek and it's not far from Paarl. So that's where I was born. And my parents were both teachers. We lived there not for very long. And then we moved to Belleville. That was in the late 50s.
Wow.
And spent my early childhood years there in Belleville. Belleville at the time was quite rural. And then from there, my dad in particular, with hindsight, I would now describe him as a wanderer, because he taught in Belleville at a primary school, and then he spread his wings, and we went to a place called Papendorp on the mouth of the Olifants River on the west coast, further up,
Right.
near Vredendal and Lutzville. Yeah, and then my years there, I mean, the Papendorp at the time had two names. It was one of those peculiar towns that are not towns really. No, it's not a town. It's a fishing village. It had two names, Papendorp and Viswater. And my parents taught there at a two-person school, and I had some of the best years of my life while we were there. I still go there from time to time. And as a child, between the ages of 6 and 10, I would describe it, or these days I describe it, that a month was such a long time. There was so much to do on the mouth of the Olifants River and with the Atlantic Ocean just in the background. I would describe it as, a month then to me felt like a year. So I lived, if I want to dramatize it, I lived in Papendorp for 48 years. I describe it. And that was really, Bronwyn, to a large extent, because it was my early formative years. It had given me the experience of living among people who were materially very poor, but in terms of spirituality, some of the richest experiences that I have had in my entire life. And that has formed the basis of my life, together with the education, formally and informally. The values of respect and being there to serve and being welcoming, even if it is a cup of tea with just condensed milk or with no milk or no sugar. That was a great part of my formative years, and many of those at the time unwittingly, but then later wittingly and purposefully, I've internalized many of those.
Right. Yeah.
And yeah, I'm very, very much at home in the deep rural areas. So yeah, and from there, the year was 1968. My parents left and moved back closer to the city, so to speak, because there was no high school for previously disadvantaged people in the area. So my older brothers and sisters started to go to school, high school in Belleville and in Athlone, respectively.
Wow.
And we moved to a farm in the Darling district. Now, farm life at the time, talking about 1968, 1969, it was another deep experience. And then we moved to another farm. You see, I mentioned earlier my dad, I described my late father now as a wanderer. We moved closer to Malmesbury, also on a farm. Him and my mother and one other teacher, they taught at a farm school called Middle Post. And I then, in now grade 7, went to Liebenberg Primary in Malmesbury. Again, rural, again, church-dominated social life, and to a large extent in education. And yeah, that's the, so I've been to 4 different primary schools. And yeah, the expression is a rolling stone gathers no moss. I have gathered a lot of moss, and it is sticking until this day, based on the different kinds of people that I had to interact with at a very young age. And then for my high school, I went to Spesbona in Athlone.
But I find you in the city.
So I was in the city, but we always had, even though we were lived in rural areas, we always had the interaction or the contact with the city, if you like, at the time. And my paternal grandparents, they lived in Paarl. So I'm from here. I see this as my roots on my father's side, and on my mother's side, Franschhoek. I'm 5th generation Franschhoek. So there was always, one foot here and the other foot in the city rural areas. So that's in a nutshell. And from there, just in terms of my academic or educational career, in 1975, I went to the University of the Western Cape and stayed there for a number of years.
Exactly, because academics then became a big part of your life, and you ended up being a lecturer there. And did you also complete your doctorate at the UWC?
Yes, I completed my doctorate this year, 30 years ago.
Wow.
One doesn't realize it, but yeah, it is in 1995. I obtained my doctorate, and I wrote about Black consciousness in the Western Cape. And within that, I looked at the process of what I call, not just what I call, but is known as charterism, the re-emergence of charterism, those organizations who subscribe to the Freedom Charter. But prior to that, I did a stint in the UK. I received a British Council scholarship, and I then did a second master's at the University of York in England. And prior to that, I did my master's at UWC. And I also did a teacher's diploma through UNISA while I was teaching at Squinsbury, because someone described it at some point, someone in authority, that it seemed like I wanted to become a professional student. And at the time, I was making use of a then Department of Education bursary.
Okay. Somewhere along the line, the entrepreneurial bug also bit you. So was there a transition for you out of academics, or was academics always there in the background?
They say once an academic, always an academic. Someone was saying to me, based on what I just now said, once an academic, always an academic, that I'm actually a businessman with an academic background.
Okay.
And the reason, the main reason why I decided to make the transition was because in the run-up to 1994, the first elections we had, democratic elections we had in the country, I have been following the process, being a student of history, and my field of specialization, as I intimated, was 20th century South African political history. And I've been following developments for a very long time.
Mhm.
And the run-up to the unbanning of political organizations on the 2nd of February 1990, and the process thereafter until 1994, I followed it intensely and closely because it was part of my subject matter, my research
Yeah.
that I've been doing. And, the Kempton Park negotiations, I soon realized that we are working towards a political settlement. It was not democracy in its fullest sense. And I realized then, by the time that we were close to the 1994 elections, that nothing or very little was said in the negotiations about economic democracy, getting previously disadvantaged people as part of the mainstream of the economy. People in normal circumstances, they vote once every 5 years, and in between, children must go to school, people must live, they must work, and their potential in whatever field needs to be unlocked, and economics and or business is critical. Myself and two other people, we formed during discussions we've had, and we regularly debated and discussed and problematized, the developments within our country. And then came up with the idea that we must, albeit minute or in a small way, must direct our energies and our thinking towards bringing about economic democracy. And we formed a business forum at the time called the Western Cape Business Opportunities Forum. We then started to engage corporate South Africa. In January 1995, engaged with Sanlam, because most, if not all of us, were Afrikaans speakers, mother tongue. And Sanlam, based on the research that I've done, and it was known that Sanlam was an Afrikaner based organization since its inception in 1918. And we engaged them, and we stated to, the executive chair at the time, the late now Marinus Darling, and late Desmond Smith, who was the managing director. We said to them, this is our vision. This is where we are heading towards. And we were very bold and brave at the time, because we were very sure and certain as to where our country should be going. We said to them, this is where we're heading. Are you going to join us or not? And at that meeting, they declared that they are going to join us on this journey. And since then, a lot has happened.
Fantastic. Yeah. So was the joining in terms of funding?
No, it was more than just funding. We were not looking for funding.
Right.
The economy and the ownership for us was a big thing, because due to my exposure to living on farms, I saw what ownership did to young children, the farmers' children, where we were. Ownership gives one a different kind of confidence and assertiveness. So ownership was for us a big thing. We didn't want funding, first and foremost. And we wanted to do it in partnership. Previously disadvantaged people, together with previously advantaged people. We firmly believed that we are one South Africa and that we must do it together. And what we said very boldly is that we don't have money because of the past. And we didn't say that with a tear in our eyes. We stated it as fact. Going forward, we need to work together and demonstrate that we can overcome the ways in which we've been socialized, and that we therefore need to demonstrate to ourselves and to fellow South Africans that we can work together. So we went in there and said that, given the history of South Africa, growing inequality, that we can't be expected to find money and then to buy into your business or existing businesses. But we have had particular experiences, and they had particular experiences, previously advantaged people, and that we must, to put it in Cape language, we must make a mix masala. And because the taste of that, proverbially and or symbolically, will be far better than just, continuing the way we did. At the time, we didn't talk about Black economic empowerment. It was unbundling at the time because of the fact that South Africa's economy was so isolated and insular. An organization like Sanlam was in motor cars and all kinds of other things apart from their core business. And they started a process of unbundling in 1993 with Dr. Ntatu Motlana when they did the Metropolitan deal. And we said, we want some of your non-core businesses to be given to us, but in partnership with you. And that you must underwrite the money that needs to be borrowed if money was needed. And that was the philosophy, that was the principle. And that's what we started to do. And it worked very well in some instances. And in other instances, like Life Ease, it did not work so well.
Bravery and in having the conversations with the people that has the power, you were able to empower so many others, I can just imagine.
Absolutely.
And so where further did the journey take you after all these courageous moves?
It was a fascinating time in our country's history. Yes, I should say that every phase in one's personal life and in the life of an organization or society, there's the ebb and flow and highlights and lowlights. The people who owned businesses, they were looking, as it was put then, to those or at those who were coming through the cracks. And it was easy to spot those people. WEGBOF, the Western Cape Business Opportunities Forum, we were very brave and bold. And we, established relationships with the media and corporate South Africa, banks and the airports company, among other, and with Pepcore, and I can name it, and also with government. So yeah, we were noticed because we were quite vocal and visible.
Even though there was no internet at the time, I would think.
Oh yeah, but there were ways and means, the personal contact and the interactions on a personal level. So we did lots of those.
Okay.
And then one of the things that where I was particularly noticed was Groot Constantia, the oldest wine producing estate on the continent and in the Southern Hemisphere. And they have embarked on a process of, change. And I was invited to consider to serve on the board. And that was the year 2003. So in the board, I shortly thereafter was appointed as the vice chair for 2 years. And as part of that process, I went abroad to France and to Germany and to England, to get exposure.
In the
And
wine industry?
yeah,
Okay.
wine-related visits. And
Mhm.
then, yeah, 4 years after I joined the board, I was elected to be the chair.
Okay.
And in modern times, the first chairperson of color, not that that matters, because color doesn't carry one, it's one's ability.
So it's a worth mention.
I was chairperson of Groot Constantia for 16 years until 2023, when I stepped down voluntarily.
Okay.
And it's been a long spell, but if one is in a leadership position, I believe one must revise, revisit, and renew all the time. So I'm an avid reader.
15 years is
The
a long
company,
time there.
it's a very long time, and as
Yeah.
I say, I stepped down voluntarily.
Mm.
But 3 years prior to me stepping down, we worked on the succession plan,
Right.
not just for the position of chairperson, but also for the positions that were coming up, but also more importantly for where Groot Constantia was going to be positioned in the future. And I must say, the succession process has been extremely successful, and Groot Constantia is in a much better place. But that in itself, the journey in the wine industry is so fascinating. And I must just add that, people who serve on the Groot Constantia board, they don't get remunerated. We do it in service of the nation,
Wow.
because we position Groot Constantia as the nation's wine estate.
Mm.
There is no onus. The trust that governs the estate, it's they do it on behalf of the South African nation, and the beneficiaries are the people on the estate and or the estate itself. There's no shareholders who can chip in if need
Wow,
be.
that
But
is so
yeah, a
interesting.
wonderful, wonderful
Thank you
journey.
for sharing that. You also serve on several other boards, I believe, and have done many other things in business. You want to share a bit more of the different industries you had to tap into?
One of the very, very rewarding, and I'm talking about inner rewarding,
Yeah.
involvements that I have is with the commercial radio station Smile 90.4 FM.
Mm.
I was invited to become part of a discussion group. That was before ICASA has put out an invitation to apply. At the very first discussion meeting, I was asked by those who were present to chair it. And since then, I have been the chair of Smile 90.4 FM, co-chair with Anand Singh, the movie maker, and who serves on the International Olympic Committee. But he made the movie Long Walk to Freedom about Nelson Mandela. To start something from a discussion and then to take it through the initials, the application stage, being awarded the license, and ICASA, as some people may or may not know, they don't issue licenses regularly. So we were very fortunate to have been awarded this license. So Smile, yeah, it's one of the wonderful projects.
What year were you awarded the license?
That was in 12 years ago.
Okay. And did you
And the
serve on the board
competition
all the time?
all the time since
Oh.
inception. And yeah, it's
Mm.
really one of the, I'm
Must be
saying it
like a bit
again,
of a baby to you.
it is more than just a baby. But the baby's growing up. We now have, few 100,000 listeners. But that's one of the organizations that I served. Bronwyn,
Okay.
it's really varied. I served on the West Coast Fossil Park for a period of 6 years,
Yeah.
again voluntarily. It's there's fossils dating back 5 million years
Mm.
ago, and I never used to play the lotto, but
Mm.
we wanted to establish a visitor center, and
Mm.
we made an application to the lotto, and
Okay.
they had awarded us nearly 70 million rand.
Mhm.
And it's not money that disappeared. The center is there near Langebaan.
Time I go
But
there, I will go visit. Yeah.
yeah, you should. It's really an experience and taking one
Mm.
back in
Uh,
time. Will forever, I believe, have an interest in education.
mhm.
So I've served on various boards,
Yeah.
school governing bodies.
Mm.
Two of the institutions that I was involved with was Bridge House, the board,
Yeah.
and then yeah, also the Oprah Winfrey Leadership Academy for
Yeah.
Girls.
I was going to
I,
ask you about that. How did that come about?
one of the former heads of school at Bridge House, Anne van Sale,
Mm.
she retired at Bridge House, and that was at the time that the Oprah Winfrey Leadership Academy for Girls, OWLAG, was looking for a new head. She was headhunted and appointed.
Mhm.
And because of our working relationship here, she has asked myself and two other people to come and assist her.
Yeah.
And that was the start of a 6-year journey. Shortly thereafter, I was appointed or elected to be the chairperson of the governance committee.
Mm.
So work very closely with Oprah, and I'm not just here to drop a name
Good.
because
You
Oprah
say that
is,
so casually, oh my word.
I played my role and introduced, yeah, several things at the school, and it was a wonderful, wonderful journey to
Mm.
be working with young girls
Mm.
who have been deprived of so much,
Yeah.
not just materially, but
Mm.
emotionally and in all so
Yeah.
many ways. And then to see how they develop,
Valid.
um,
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, I'm a
and then
great Oprah follower, so I mean, she has some of these girls as her daughters in her house, and one of
for
them
sure,
has become a doctor as well, and
among other.
they've just gone from strength to strength, living abroad even. So I don't know what an amazing honor that must have been. Have you actually met Oprah?
I have not just met her. I have spent a lot of time. I've even flown with her in a private jet and
Oh,
walked the streets of New York, and we had a
amazing.
board retreat in Maui, in
Oh, yeah.
Hawaii. So
She has a
I
heart.
have not just met her. We've shared,
Oh,
yeah, a lot of ideas and visions
yeah.
and how to implement them.
Look,
Yeah,
you are a visionary leader, and you're so humble, and you're a servant leader, and your journey just speaks to it. Everything that you've touched, you've done with so much dedication and honor. And so it's very a privilege for me to speak to you. As a wrap up, what would you say is your biggest life lesson out of all of these stories?
I am a firm believer that each and every individual who has been born into this world, we have got a right to be here. I have learned, and I'm applying it, that no one is superior to anybody else. Alternatively, inferior. And that we are here on this earth to serve.
Mm.
And if you do that, then you will proverbially move the needle
Mm.
or impact other people. And if we are no longer here, it is not necessarily the wealth, the material wealth that we have accumulated
Mm.
that matters, but how we have impacted and played a role and made others to realize
Mm.
that they, as I was saying, have a right to be here.
That their lives
So
matter.
we must not stand back. We
Mm.
must be bold.
Mm.
We must feel honored and do it with love
Mm.
and do it with energy, because that is a decision
True.
that each and every individual, I believe, can make.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
energy takes us many places,
Yeah.
and it's doable. It
With the
can be
right
done.
intentions. Yeah. Oh, I really felt that. Thank you so much for your time. What an honor. I
You're
will
very
take
welcome.
it out to the world, and maybe even Oprah will get to see it. Thank you for your time,
Yeah.
sir. You must have a wonderful day. I appreciate it.
Welcome, and success with your own endeavors too, Bronwyn.
I appreciate
All
that.
the best.